Takako Uro. Since we're already adding Ryu, Kururushi, and even reworking Yuta, the final touch for a full Sendai Colony replica would be adding Uro. And yes, don't write comments about that old guy. He got packed up in like 0.1 seconds anyway. On top of that, some talented creators have already made a bunch of really high-quality Euro movesets with pretty good concepts, and even their own domains. Some of them also have the wind and space distortion effects looking almost exactly like in the anime. So potentially, devs wouldn't even need to create everything completely from zero. They could take those fan-made movesets as a concept, change them a bit to fit their own vision, and then balance everything properly. And while this might still sound like a massive amount of work, but coming up with an entire moveset concept from scratch while also making the animations and effects alone is way harder. And the community already did a huge part of that concept work for them. Fix targeting. First, we need to understand why certain people even target other players in the first place. The first and probably the most common reason is revenge. Even if you lost the fight fairly and took it normally, nothing stops you from coming back and challenging the winner again, especially if the first fight was close and you lost on low HP. The second time, everything can change. Maybe this time, the enemy makes a critical mistake instead of you. This is the most reasonable scenario out of the three, and it doesn't need to be fixed. Now let's move on to the ugly stuff. The second type is noob farmers, a player who looks for weak people on the server with a very low amount of kills, beats them once, and then starts targeting only them. And the last, most annoying scenario is a toxic player who targets you either to make you leave or just to be toxic. Most likely both. As I said, normal revenge does not need any fixes. If someone beats you once, then beats you again, that's just the basics of any fighting game. Punishing that would be stupid, but with noob farmers, I think the game should be way more strict. First of all, I think it would be pretty reasonable to add a condition where if the player you killed has less than 100 kills, you don't get any money for killing them, like at all. This would not only partially fix people farming beginners, but it would also hit those players who farm their own AFK alt accounts with 0 kills just for money. And starting from 3 kills on the same player in a row without killing anyone else in between, the 4th kill on that same player should give you no ultimate charge, no kill progress, and no money. Basically, nothing at all. But the more attentive people probably already noticed a hole in this system. A toxic player could be, let's say, not very good at the game, run into you 3 times in a row, die every time, and then for some reason you stop getting ultimate charge and kills for killing the guy who is targeting you. That would be pretty weird. So if an anti-targeting system gets added, it also needs one extra check: who started the fight. If the same person attacks you first 4 times in a row and then dies, they shouldn't get any protection from the system. If, between their attempts to target you, you start the fight first, their targeting counter should reset. But what about toxic players who don't care about money and just want to BM? That's where it gets much harder. A system where the toxic player needs to hit first is not perfect, because that means they still get the first click advantage. And people like that are almost impossible to fix perfectly. Of course, you could go into extreme solutions. For example, if someone keeps targeting the same player forever, they start dealing 50% less damage to them. Or the victim gets personal protection after respawning, but those are already very dangerous mechanics because they can easily break normal rematches and normal fights. So the most realistic option is to at least remove the reward. No money, no ultimate charge, and no kill progress for endlessly farming the same player over and over again. This will not completely kill targeting. Toxic players will still be toxic players, but at least the game will stop rewarding people for bullying one beginner the entire time, and it will stop giving $5 an ultimate charge to a toxic player who is going to chase you again anyway. And I also want to add one more thing at the end. This would not kill rematches, because with a system that tracks who started the fight, your sparring opponent only needs to hit you first once to reset the targeting counter. Make burst ignore true ragdoll. Recently, I've been spending a lot of time in public servers, and what I usually do there is complete nonsense. I swap random people with each other, interrupt fights by not letting people finish combos with those same swaps, throw random players into the void so they don't get too comfortable and things like that. Basically, I'm doing the most harmless activity possible, and nobody can really complain about it. But when people do complain, and especially when they do it as a group, I often find myself in a situation where the anti-team system activates, but also kind of doesn't, because the move that triggered it applied true ragdoll, which prevents you from using the free evasive, therefore blocking the healing from the anti-teaming system. I am 1000% sure this is a bug that the developers simply can't fix, because they don't actually play the game, especially not in public servers, and especially not on normal characters instead of something broken like Heian Sukuna. So yeah, this is yet another minus for JJS anti-teaming, and another proof of how careless the developers can be with the community. The ability to choose where you spawn. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of tired of running across the entire map just to get revenge on a toxic player, or to make it in time for some domain clash fight. I would not mind having the ability to choose a spawn point where I appear every time, instead of relying on pure randomness. And I can already see the comments saying something like, but then toxic players will spawn right next to me, or everyone will only spawn in popular areas and nobody will care about the edges of the map. But first of all, if everyone starts choosing the center of the map as their preferred spawn point, then maybe the spawn points on the edges of the map were not that useful in the first place. And as for toxic players, if they get lucky, they can already spawn closer to you right now. On top of that, if you always know where an enemy spawns, you can spawn kill them. But that wouldn't happen if the enemy used a random spawn instead of a fixed one. So in this version, the system already looks much more fair. You remove the randomness that forces you to run back and forth for 30 seconds, but in exchange, you risk spawning directly into the chaos, someone's domain, or getting spawn killed. I would say a fair trade. Instant respawn after resetting. Obviously, without including Yuki in this list, this system could work as a simple quality of life change that slightly improves the overall experience and reduces the time you spend waiting to respawn. Or it could even work as an alternative to the fixed spawn selection system, because instead of running across the entire map for a minute, players could just reset 4 or 5 times and eventually appear at the spawn they need, which is still way faster than running through the entire map. And this system literally has no real objective downsides. It's just a great feature that pretty much everyone would want to see. Small character icons in the character selection menu. For anyone who isn't American, this would literally be one of the best updates ever, because choosing characters by icon would be way easier than trying to remember who the hell is called Perfection. By the way, for anyone who doesn't know, TSEE can't just use the normal character names because of copyright. Otherwise, MAPPA, or whoever owns the rights to Jujutsu Kaisen, would come in, look at the character names, and just get the game taken down until they're changed. But with icons, on the other hand, it's harder to ban the game for that, because if you slightly change the character's design, you can already argue that it's a new original design and not a direct copy, which means copyright becomes way less useful against it. And I also forgot to add that this would help new players a lot too, because they don't even know which character is supposed to be who. And that's it. Thanks for watching until the end. Write in the comments what you think about these ideas and whether I went too far with the targeting system, because maybe the best option is to leave everything as it is and not throw extra problems into a game that technically already works. Good luck and bye.